Hey, sports card investors, collectors, all of my collectibles friends. Today we are going to be talking about PSA news, some new news that has come out in a recent interview. I don't hear anybody talking about it, and so we are going to jump right into it. It does have to do with their new acquisition, but it's a little twist on that information that I think will be very interesting to you. So make sure you stay until the end of the video. Stay tuned.
Big, strong.
Okay, guys, to start with, we are going to talk about PSA's acquisition of Genament. I think that I'm saying that right. And that is an AI technology that will assist in grading. Before we do dig into it, I do have to say thank you to the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by Otis, a magical place where almost anyone can buy and sell shares of rare collectibles, including some pretty amazing sports cards, sneakers, and art. You simply download their app and sign up is free. Here's a quick look at the Otis app. As you can see, they've got sneakers, rare sneakers, graded comic books, graded video games, various art options, as well as sports cards. There's new assets launched in the app weekly for you to buy shares in. You can also buy shares of previously launched assets from other Otis members. And there is an offer right now to get your first share free when you first fund your account. Guys, you know that I am big on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. I have their action figures from 1988, the first editions, and their first appearance is in their 1984 comic book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. It is a scarce book. There are 28 on the census report in a 9.8 condition. Otis has a copy of this book. I don't see myself having tens of thousands of dollars to be able to buy a copy of that book. And so it's great to have the ability to buy shares of a very unique piece. If you are interested in seeing what Otis has to offer, please visit the link in my video description. All right, guys, I was on Twitter yesterday on the internet just minding my own business, and I ran across a tweet by a guy in the hobby that I really like to follow. It's Yam Wax. I've had some correspondence with him in the past. He's great. He's got a great card collection, but he was talking specifically about a podcast that he had found, and I had not heard of this podcast. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't because it looks like they've got some really good stuff, but essentially it's called Grails, and it's by Alton Insights, I believe that's how you say it. And these guys essentially did an interview with Kevin Lanane. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right. He is with Genament, and then also Nat Turner from PSA. And so these guys are talking about the acquisition, kind of what does it mean, and some of the things around it. And there was some really interesting nuggets in there that I thought that I would definitely share with you guys, because I think it's important kind of as we're talking about cards, the grading landscape, what does it all mean, etc. It was juicy. There were some juicy nuggets in there. So some of the common news that we have seen, and Yamwax touched on it, and I've heard others as well talking about this, is essentially they want to kind of do away with or really limit the cracking and re-slabbing of cards. You know, where maybe you send in, you're trying to get a PSA 10, you get a PSA 9, maybe it's a rare card, and so what happens is, I've heard of people do this, they crack that slab 3 or 4 different times, send that 9 in to try to get the 10, and I think sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're never successful, but I think that PSA is really trying to kind of add with this AI, a big reason for this AI in part that they've just acquired is to add a fingerprint, as kind of Yamwax had put it in his tweet, essentially with pixels, you know, that to where that they can identify more easily these cards that they have already graded. So when this card comes in, they're able to easily figure out which cards have been cracked and resubbed, and hopefully, you know, just kind of do away with that kind of, I'm not sure what they would do, just send it it back to them, put it in. I think that they might have mentioned just putting it back in the same exact slab and everything, sending it back. I don't know if they would drop a note to that person saying, hey, thanks, we've already seen this card. I don't know exactly what their policy would be, but that is part of the objective of having this AI, is to be able to identify those cards and to just make sure, I think, to clean up their, the population reports. Every time this thing happens, the pop reports change. So the pop reports, we already know, are not 100% completely accurate. There's going to be inaccuracies because of the grading, the cracking, the reslabbing, etc. So that was an interesting take. And they have said that there is kind of hobbyists that like that. There's hobbyists that do not like that for obvious reasons. There's a lot of people, I think, that try to, they try to go that route. They're cracking slabs and sending them in to try to get better grades. So PSA wants to, I think, kind of tighten up the whole process. And this is part of that. They have hired more people. We've known that. They've hired more than 150 people over the last 90 days or last 6 months. It's been a lot of people that PSA has hired. And Nat Turner was talking about they've just hired 5 or 6 more software developers. They've got new product managers. They've got a data scientist that they've hired. So there is a lot of money going into technology people. They understand that turnaround times right now are obviously unacceptable, but they also said they want to have a solution for those lower value cards. We'll get into that a little bit later because there's an interesting twist here coming. But I thought that was interesting too. So who knows what that'll look like? But obviously they'll have some sort of some service down the line to make it easier to grade the $5, $10, $20 cards, and for maybe people that just want to have them in a slab, not necessarily to flip, but just, hey, I want to have this card protected. There has been discussion about kind of a PSA black label, essentially kind of like the BGS black label, something that's above the PSA 10. And again, with that idea, they've gotten mixed feedback from the community on that. If I think they've surveyed it, looked at it, and they've gotten mixed feedback. Some collectors, hobbyists really like it, and some do not like it at all. And they said in this interview that they're just putting that on the back burner right now, not a high priority for them right this second. Not to say that it wouldn't happen down the line, but it's not going to be a high priority right this second. They were also asked about, the value of currently graded cards, or past graded cards, PSA graded cards, in comparison to a AI-assisted graded card with a PSA grader. And their PSA's response to that, these guys' response to that, was really that they don't believe that they should be looked at any differently. So they didn't say that, okay, the AI-assisted grade should have a higher value than the PSA, than the regular version. Now, of course, the market might dictate that differently. The market will always dictate everything. But their feel, or I guess their messaging in this particular interview, was kind of like, don't really think that they should be looked at differently. Like that AI assisted grade should be viewed way, way better. And from my viewpoint, as I was listening to the interview, that was my takeaway. They also mentioned and brought up, the importance of security. And that is another reason for the importance of this AI that has been brought in, bringing technology into the grading space. And a lot of it has to do with, they recognize that there are fraudsters out there, and they want to protect those PSA slabs. They don't want them to be easily replicated or just be, they understand that there's a lot of money behind it, and they're trying to protect that. So IT security also is a big part of their focus here as well. I like to hear that. I think that any hobbyist would like to hear that as well. All right, so the one innovation that they brought up, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. Brace yourselves. The one innovation that they brought up towards the end of the interview that I thought was really, really cool, that I thought, for me, someone that does not buy raw to grade, that's not been kind of my model. I've been buying graded, selling graded, buying raw and selling raw. I haven't been utilizing a grading service up to this point. The one thing that really stuck out to me that they brought up that I thought was really cool is some sort of a digital pre-grading tool potentially down the line. They were referring to it as collection discovery. And so they actually brought up, and it's a very common question that people bring up. They might find a collection. Maybe they have nothing to do with sports cards, don't know anything about it, but they've got the old family boxes of cards they find, and it's, how much are these cards worth? How many times do we hear that question? 1 million? So it's this, they brought up a way that maybe digitally they would be able to give you some sort of an idea, out of these 50 cards that you've brought to, scanned to us essentially. these 7 look to be worth grading, for example. And the one thing, I believe it was Nat Turner that was saying it in the interview, but essentially it avoids the people that are sending a bunch of cards into PSA to get graded, thinking they're going to be a PSA 9 and they're getting a PSA 2. And I thought that was amazing. If you think about how much time that could save, not just PSA, but also the collector and the investor and the flipper and all those people, where they could essentially digitally kind of come back to you quickly and say like, hey, out of these 50 cards, there's really only 11 that look to be worthwhile sending in. That would be a total. We talk, game changer is always kind of an overused term, but that's an innovation that I think it would be extremely valuable for PSA customers and for just future customers coming into this hobby. It would definitely, it would save time on both sides, because right now we've got, the PSA backlog in part is because you don't have these sorts of processes in place. So you've just got everything flooded into PSA, whether it be a $5 card or $1 million card, and so there's not kind of really a breakdown to these processes. And that tool in particular, that collection discovery tool, the way they referred to that, I think that would be monstrous for the hobby. I think that would be extremely, extremely useful. I think that site would be, they would have to have some serious server space. I'm just thinking about all the people that would be taking their raw cards and trying to get them analyzed, but that would be awesome. So anyway, guys, what do you think about all this? Do you have any opinions on these kind of this new foray into technology? One last thing that I wanted to bring up too. They brought up HGA in this particular interview, and these guys, didn't say anything bad about HGA at all. But basically the question is, how would you compare this AI to an HGA AI? The only thing that they had to say, again, nothing negative to say, is just that the technology is difficult to make. It's difficult to really get right, especially for surface issues and different things. And so who knows what that means, and who knows between all of these companies. I think they're all probably looking at similar types of ways to break away from the other groups. And I think this is actually where competition is going to be great for grading in the hobby, because it does force these companies, who's got the best software, who's going to have the best tools to be able to read cards the best, and who's going to be popular, which of these kind of companies is going to pull away, from the others, or are they all going to be kind of the same? It's just going to be interesting to watch it. The grading assistant, as far as the AI assisting, it certainly seems like that's here to stay, the way that I'm viewing it. It seems like a lot of companies are really moving in that direction. It saves a lot of time, I think, for the graders, but then also kind of gives a leg up as far as the accuracy and everything goes too, and just trying to find that consistency that I think that grading companies are really trying to find too. So, guys, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested in it. And check out this podcast. This is a great podcast. Watch it. It's only about 30 minutes long, but it's great. It is, again, Grails by Alton Insights. And this one was with Kevin and Nat Turner, and just kind of going through it. And they really are, they're down to earth and break it all down. And so I think it was great. So definitely check out that interview. I'll see if I can put a link in the description, but if not, just find it. It's Grails by Alton Insights. I will talk to you guys again soon. I hope everyone has an awesome day. Take care.